We all know that a nuclear explosion is accompanied by the intense radiation of light and heat, as well as the release of radioactive materials that can pollute the air, water, and soil. In fact, everything around us will be affected. Since the time of the Cold War, the threat of nuclear war has not decreased. In fact, it has also increased significantly today. Many countries have not abandoned nuclear weapons while improving them. World leaders threaten to press the red button from time to time. What will happen if one day it happens? Watch the video and you will get an answer to your questions. As soon as we hear about a possible nuclear war, we immediately draw a picture of the apocalypse in our heads. However, few people have an idea of how dangerous nuclear weapons really are and what types of these weapons exist in the modern world. At the time of the appearance of nuclear weapons, it was exclusively strategic. As paradoxical as it sounds, nuclear weapons were originally conceived as a means to prevent war. It seemed that because of its danger to the whole world, no one would use it. However, no one will fight against a country that has such a dangerous weapon. While feeling safe, countries with nuclear weapons begin to dictate terms to others. To resist nuclear blackmail, the country had to have its own nuclear weapons. That was the beginning of the arms race, which led to the fact that the world has accumulated so many strategic warheads that they can be used to destroy the planet several times. There were still several decades before the advent of precision weapons, and military experts understood that the destruction of entire cities in the enemy's rear was less effective than a strike on advanced positions, fortified areas, troop concentrations, crossings, and headquarters. That was the moment when tactical nuclear weapons appeared, distinguished by army means of delivering a nuclear charge and tactical goals in the interest of a group of troops. At that time, the only way to fix the issue of precision was to increase the power of the ammunition. The larger the radius of the damage to the surface, the more chances there are to destroy the target, and yet the power of tactical nuclear weapons is significantly lower than strategic. For the military command, the use of tactical nuclear weapons has a number of advantages. Instead of sending dozens of planes into the attack or using artillery for half a day, you can release just one nuclear warhead. As for radiation, compared to the probability of an exchange of strategic nuclear strikes, one strike with tactical nuclear weapons is a drop in the ocean. Nuclear weapons include atomic, hydrogen, and neutron bombs. In an atomic bomb, a nuclear fission reaction occurs. Heavy isotopes are divided into lighter chemical elements. During this division, tremendous energy is released. A nuclear fusion reaction takes place in a hydrogen bomb. In this case, everything is vice versa. Two light atoms make one heavy one. As a result, even more energy is released. Inside a hydrogen bomb, there is always an atomic bomb, which serves as a fuse for it. The power of a hydrogen bomb can be many times greater than the power of an atomic one. The explosive force of an atomic bomb is calculated in kilotons, and the hydrogen force is calculated in megatons. In addition, there is a neutron bomb, which was created during the Cold War. It is a low-power nuclear charge to which a block containing beryllium isotope is added as a source of fast neutrons. The power of a neutron bomb usually does not exceed several kilotons of TNT equivalent. These bombs belong to tactical nuclear weapons. The most powerful explosive device in the history of mankind is the Tsar bomb. This is a thermonuclear aerial bomb developed by the Soviet Union in the 50s. The design of the Tsar bomb is classified, so we are not able to tell you how it works. But there is no doubt that it is much more powerful than the Little Boy and the Fat Man, which the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the time. It is also known that its mass is 27 tons, its length is 8 meters, and its diameter is slightly more than 2. Its capacity is 50 megatons. This meant that the Tsar bomb would not only destroy a huge city, but even the plane that dropped it had not much of a chance of surviving. In order to not get hit by the blast wave, the pilot would have to fly away at a distance of 50 kilometers during the fall of the bomb. Although we cannot say with certainty how the Tsar bomb was arranged, we know that it belongs to the type of hydrogen, or as they are also called, thermonuclear bombs. We have already said that these bombs are based on nuclear fusion. The idea of creating such bombs belongs to two physicists, Enrico Fermi and Edward Teller. It was these two who helped create the bombs that were later dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The design of a thermonuclear bomb is much more complicated than an atomic one. In order for atomic nuclei to merge with each other, they must be heated to 1,000,000 degrees. The scheme of the device that would allow this to be done was patented by the Americans back in 1946. By 1951, the device was able to assemble and conduct the first test under the code name George. The design was similar to a bagel with heavy isotopes of hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium. They were chosen because such nuclei are easier to manage than hydrogen nuclei. The fuse, as in all modern thermonuclear bombs, was an atomic bomb placed inside. The explosion compressed deuterium and tritium. They merged, gave a stream of fast neutrons, and ignited the uranium lining. In a conventional atomic bomb, it does not divide. There are only its own neutrons, which cannot make a stable isotope of uranium divide. Thanks to new technologies, the explosion turned out to be much more powerful, but tests have shown that the hydrogen nuclei are not compressed strongly enough. Mathematician Stanislaw Ulam proposed a different approach and offered a two-stage nuclear fuse. The idea was to place a plutonium rod in the hydrogen zone of the device. The new device was tested on the atoll in the Pacific Ocean in 1952 year. Today, all modern thermonuclear devices are something in the middle between Soviet and American models. All of them use lithium deuteride as fuel, which is ignited by a two-stage nuclear detonator. Today, 9 countries in the world have nuclear weapons. After it was first developed in the United States, nuclear warheads appeared in the Soviet Union, Great Britain, France, and China. The Soviet arsenal was later acquired by Russia. These 5 countries are called nuclear powers because they had time to test nuclear weapons before the law on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons came into force. There remain 4 countries that have nuclear weapons, but they have never signed that treaty. These are India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. The UN imposes sanctions against the DPRK for nuclear tests. In response, Kim Jong-un only promises not to use nuclear weapons first, but no one knows how much one can trust the dictator's promises. India and Pakistan, in turn, are arguing over the ownership of Kashmir, and any escalation of the conflict risks escalating into a nuclear crash. Things between Israel and Iran. Israel denies the very fact that the country has nuclear weapons. However, in 1979, an American satellite captured a series of light bursts characteristic of nuclear tests. However, we have to face the fact that nuclear deterrence works. In the mid-80s, there were about 70,000 nuclear warheads in the world, and now there are about 13,000. Their number continues to decrease. 90% of the nuclear arsenal today belongs to Russia and the United States. In total, there are about 2,000 missiles on combat duty in the world right now. On December 24, 1962, nuclear tests were conducted over the northern Russian island of Novaya Zemlya. As a result, an explosion occurred that incinerated an area within a radius of 10 kilometers. With such an explosion of power, anyone who was in the area of 5,000 kilometers from the dump site would have received third-degree burns. However, all the data about this explosion is very classified. Not a single photo and not a single video got into the network. Operation Hard Track was a series of 35 nuclear tests conducted by the United States. The operation took place from April 28 to August 18, 1958. One of the most powerful and spectacular explosions of this operation was the Wahoo test, which was conducted at the Pacific Test Site at a depth of 150 meters. Within 7 seconds after an explosion, the drops reached a height of 250 meters. The target ship, located at a distance of more than 5,000 kilometers, was hit by a shockwave. There is still a debate about whether the atomic bombings of the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki can be considered a war crime. To be honest, it's amazing that people are still arguing about the expediency of using nuclear weapons. In my opinion, there can be no justification for such things. And yet, some believe that the use of this type of weapon, paradoxically, helped to reduce losses on both sides. The thesis, of course, is very doubtful because of the consequences of a nuclear explosion people suffer for many years. Nevertheless, the American government explained the use of nuclear weapons by the fact that up to 200 people, mostly civilians, were killed daily due to the refusal of the Japanese government to capitulate. Thus, military experts explained to the Americans that nuclear strikes were in the interests of the Japanese themselves. And despite the fact that the catastrophe of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was one of the greatest tragedies in the history of mankind, there are still many who believe that it was impossible to avoid this terrible event. Instead of learning a lesson about the inadmissibility of the use of such weapons, military experts argue only about whether Japan's rapid surrender would have been possible without the use of nuclear weapons or not. President Biden has increased the funding budget for NATO countries by 2,003 years. This is due to the military conflict in Ukraine. It is known that the American government supports the Ukrainian authorities, helping with huge sums of money and weapons. But how high is the probability of using nuclear weapons against Russia in this war? No one can definitely answer this question. In any case, the USA definitely has such an opportunity. In recent years, huge funds have been invested into the development of various weapons, including nuclear weapons. But before launching a nuclear strike, other high-tech weapons will be used. The Americans have developed high-precision missiles capable of hitting several mobile targets at once at a distance of up to 72 kilometers. It is possible to list all of the weapons that are in the arsenal of NATO for an awfully long time. In addition, American military experts say that even if nuclear missiles are fired from Russia into the United States, 56% of them will be intercepted. Let's hope that the conflict will not escalate. Each side assures that it will use nuclear weapons only in response, and therefore, if there is enough wisdom for no one to press the red button first, then a nuclear strike will not happen. And yet, if someone does press the red button, what will happen then? If a nuclear war starts, then the first thing you will have to face is a strong explosive wave. The incandescent gases formed during the explosion will begin to compress and warm up the layers one by one. As a result, a powerful stream of air propagating at supersonic speed will sweep away everything in its path. Windows will fly out, roads will start to crack, and high-rise buildings will fold up like a house of cards. A nuclear explosion of even the lowest power will destroy all life within a radius of 5,000 kilometers. This is enough to level as many as 2 Moscow cities. The next issue is nuclear winter. Many of us have seen a similar scenario in a number of Hollywood films. According to scientists, with an explosion with a capacity of only 100 megatons, the solar flux will decrease by about 20 times and the temperature will begin to drop sharply. Self-purification of the atmosphere can last from several months to several years. During all this time, the world will plunge into an oppressive semi-darkness called nuclear night. The third issue is the death of ecosystems. From lack of heat and light, plants will gradually begin to die out. The animal population will decrease. In general, it will not be easy for those who survive to find food. But only those who survive a nuclear war will be able to see this whole post-apocalyptic world. Such a dangerous situation can catch you anywhere. The first thing you have to do is find shelter. If there is a bomb shelter nearby, it will slightly increase your chances of survival. If you don't have one, run to the basement or another place located underground. If you notice a bright flash, then there is no time to seek shelter anymore. You only have a few seconds before the shockwave. If you're at home, hide in the bathroom. Thick cast iron will help reduce radiation exposure, but your acrylic bathtub won't save you. Of course, all these tips are relevant only if you are extremely far from the epicenter of the impact. If you're lucky enough to survive, it is better not to go to the surface for as long as possible, so it is important to have a supply of water and food. The risk of using nuclear weapons today is the highest since the Cold War. This is the opinion of representatives of the United Nations and many scientists and experts. Every year they turn the hands of the so-called doomsday clock, which shows how much time is left before the destruction of the world. The cause of the apocalypse may be military conflicts involving nuclear powers and too slow disarmament. I really want to believe that the experts are wrong and the powerful of this world will have the wisdom to save the planet for the next generations. And how do you assess the chances that someone will still press the red button? Please share your opinion in the comments.